Josh, please take it away.
Thanks, Healy, and thanks all of you for joining us live, and for those of you who are listening to the recording, welcome. I'm hoping to help you transform your maybe messy office, maybe not so messy, but regardless, there's always ways that all of us can get more organized and do more to boost our productivity. And I'm hoping to share some really easily implementable strategies with you today. So with that, let's start the presentation. So before we talk about how to get organized, the different specific tactics that we can do and implement, let's talk about why you'd want to do it in the first place. Because getting organized does take some of your time. You need to strategize how you're going to do it. And it probably will take some of your resources, whether it's space or finances to buy the right supplies or getting a subscription to something like OfficeDrop. So it's important that you have in mind your goals and your reasons for why you want to do this. So here are some of the more common reasons. First, getting organized can save you a lot of time. If you can put your finger on that document that you need, whether it's an electronic document or a paper document, right when you need it, for instance, when a client calls, if you can instantly pull up their file, you will save tons of time and potentially generate more revenue as opposed to someone who can't find the documents that they need when they need them. When that client calls and you can't find the document and you have to call them back or say, let me get back to you on that, it definitely puts a different spin on your professionalism and it wastes your time. So getting organized can make that sort of thing much easier and more effective for you. If you're in a small or limited space, you want to make the most of whatever spatial resources and storage you have available, especially here in San Francisco where the buildings are old and or small. Space is always at a premium, so we're always looking for ways to maximize what we have available. When you're organized, you'll be able to not only find everything that you need when you need it, but you'll have effectively utilized every available area that you have for both active usage and for storage. So getting organized can really make the most of your spatial resource. If you've ever gone to the office supply store to buy something that you knew was somewhere in your storage, but you couldn't find it, so it was easier for you to just go buy another one. This happens a lot with things like ink cartridges, for instance. If you knew there was one somewhere in your office, but you can't find it, so you just go buy another one, you've wasted money by being disorganized. When you're organized, you'll again know where all of your stuff is so you can find it when you need it, and you'll never have to go do that double purchasing ever again. And then finally, this is one that I think is really important, especially in the world of business. There's so many balls that we're juggling, and there's so many things on our minds that we sometimes get lost in the details of our day-to-day busy work and have a hard time focusing on the bigger priorities and the bigger things that we're working on. When you're organized, you'll have all of those details taken care of with systems that can help manage them for you so you can offload them from your brain. Then you're left to focus on the things that you're really good at or the things that you're in business to do. And you'll still have those tasks to do or to delegate in some cases, but you don't have to spend so much of your mental power processing them because they're handled by systems. So then you're freed up to do your very best work. So these are some of the reasons why you may want to get organized. I'm sure you have some others of your very own. When I work with clients on getting organized and boosting productivity, we focus on 7 key areas. And we're not going to go into all of these today, but I want you to put these on your radar to start thinking about because they're all really important. First, you want to make sure that you start with a plan. You never want to say, I'm going to organize my office or my desk this weekend. Those are really big projects, and really within there are smaller specific tasks that are much more actionable. So you want a strategy for how you're going to approach attacking a project like organizing an office or a desk, and you want a strategy for how you're going to approach each one of those individual tasks. Always start with a plan. Then typically you'll need to do some weeding, editing, or pruning. And this is where you go through whatever you have, whether it's electronic documents, paper, or physical things in your space, and edit through and remove what you no longer want, need, or use, so that you're left with things that are actually usable and actionable for you, and not other things cluttering the way. Then once you've weeded through things, it's time to manage the space. And that's where you would maximize your storage, containerize things that need to be grouped together, label different areas so that it's clear what lives where. You want to make sure that you've got a plan for how you're going to organize the physical elements of your work. And then we'll be touching on this a bit today, paper. Paper is something all of us have. Very, very few of us are taught how to deal with it. And for many of us, it's completely overwhelming. So you want to make sure that you have a strategy for how you're dealing with all of the paper that's in your world. Then, of course, most of us have some sort of technology that we use during the course of a business day or a work day. And for many of us, technology has become a burden. Often it's because we're using the wrong technology or not using what we have effectively. The idea here is we want to use technology as a helpful tool. And so it's important to recognize what tools can serve you best and then implement them in ways that really help you boost your productivity and that don't drag you down in the details of using the technology. All of us share one finite resource, and that's our time. We all have the same 24 hours in each day, but you've probably noticed that some people seem to get more done than others. Why is that? Well, for many of those people, they have really effective time management strategies, and that's one of the things that you'd want to focus on as well. And then finally, once you've spent energy, effort, and time implementing these 6 other areas, you're going to want to make sure that you set aside time or have a plan for how you're going to maintain them. I have yet to find the organizing system that automatically maintains itself. There is no file cabinet that you can get that the papers that you have on your desk will automatically jump into. And there's no scanner where the papers automatically jump inside the scanner and put them on your computer. So you need to have a system for how you're going to maintain those systems once you've set them up so that they can continue to serve you well. These 7 key areas together are what I call the profitable productivity system. And each one is essential. And I want you to start thinking about which areas you really need to focus on implementing. We'll be covering some of them today. Specifically, we'll be talking about managing your space and dealing with what's inside of your physical areas. We'll be dealing with some paper management strategies, both electronic and paper-based. And then we'll talk about some helpful tech tools to keep you organized. And of course, we'll have time at the end for your questions. The first thing you want to focus on when you're getting organized, especially in a space, is making sure that you've chosen the right space to work from. And there's generally 2 options here, especially if you're just starting out. You may be considering either working from home or you may be working from a separate space, whether it's a shared workspace like a multi-person office where you rent a desk, or maybe it's a specific office for just you. Maybe it's a retail storefront where you're going to be selling your goods from. But that's the basic distinction, working from home versus working from someplace that is outside of your home. Each has its own pros and cons. First, if you're working from home, typically you're already paying for the space. You're either paying your mortgage already or you're already paying your rent. So maybe all you need to do is carve out a room or a corner of a space to start doing your work from. Also, the commute is really short, especially if you're in a studio apartment where it's just one room. Maybe you rotate around and your work is in front of you. It's just a desk. Or maybe if you're working in a larger home, maybe it's a separate room. So there's no leaving the house that's needed necessarily. But there are a whole host of challenges that come along with working from home. It's not as simple and easy and great as it may seem at first glance. Here's what typically happens. You start working on an important project, maybe a proposal to work with a client, and you get distracted. You remember, oh yeah, there's a pile of laundry sitting in the laundry area, and there's some dishes in the sink too. Maybe I should take care of those and then I can really focus on my work. So you stop doing your work, you go down the hall, you work on those house chores, and before you know it, an hour's gone by. You've completely derailed your productivity, and now when it's time for you to do your work, you have to get back into that groove. And that can be very challenging. The number of distractions in a home environment are dramatically higher, typically, than in a dedicated workspace. So make sure that you have some strategy, whether it's carving out a separate room or setting some boundaries around your workspace so that you reduce the number of distractions that you see and are interrupted by. For one of my clients, she says that when she goes to work, which is in her house, she has a separate office in her home, she knows that it's time to focus on work because she puts on work clothes, and she knows specifically it's time to go to work because she puts on her shoes. And when those shoes go on, she knows that she's shifted to work mode and that no personal or house-related distractions are allowed in the way until the end of the workday. So whatever it is for you, whatever will give you that shift to work mode, decide on what it is, and then implement it regularly. That can help really boost your productivity. Now, if you work from a space outside of your home, whether a retail storefront or a co-working space or an office, you get that really nice, clear separation of your work life from your home life because typically you leave your home distractions, your laundry, TV, dishes, etc., behind when you leave the house. When you arrive at your office, there are no distractions, at least of that sort, there in front of you. But the challenge for many of us, especially if we're just starting out, is finding that right workspace and paying for it. Especially if you're new in business, that can be really challenging. You can't always afford that space right away. But know that if you can, you do get that really nice, clear separation, that boundary between your work life and your home life. Once you've chosen the space that you're going to physically doing your work from, whether it's working from home or working from a separate space, then it's time to make sure you've effectively set up your base of operations. And for most of us, that's a desk. And choosing the right desk is really important because so much of the foundation work of our businesses and our lives starts from where we sit, and that's typically our desk. Most of the clients that I work with before they've started working with me choose a desk based on two factors. One, what it looks like, and two, how much it costs. And definitely those are both very important concerns. You don't want to ignore those. But especially if we're talking about choosing a desk for business tasks, we need to look at it from a different direction. You really need to think about what you specifically will be doing during the course of a day at your desk. What are the actions and activities you'll be doing? And then choose a desk based around those so that the desk supports you doing the activities in the work style in which you'll do them best. So think about what you do during the course of a day. Do you typically work with lots of paper? Do you work with the computer primarily? Do you make lots of phone calls? Here's an example. I work with a real estate agent, and in real estate, you've got lots of paper, many deals that require lots and lots of paper. And typically you'll want to have a flat desk where you can spread out and put those deals in front of you, not a cramped desk where you have to stack them up and have to shuffle through them trying to find the one that you're looking for. So think about the course of your business day and what do you primarily do? Do you primarily work with computer? If so, you may want to choose a smaller desk that has built-in cable management, a printer shelf, keyboard drawer, etc. Or do you work with lots of paper and like to see the paper in front of you? If that's the case, then you want to choose a much larger flat desk so that you can spread out and see your work in front of you. So the key here is determine what your work style is and then choose a desk based on that. Now, if you're just starting out or if you're working from home and don't have the luxury of purchasing a new desk right away, keep in mind that there's ways around this, at least at first. Your workspace doesn't necessarily have to be a desk. I've seen great workspaces made out of coffee tables and kitchen counters. The key here is that you don't want to work at the coffee table one day, the kitchen table the day after that, and Starbucks on the next day. That creates a very disjointed working environment and working style. Instead, you'll want to choose one workspace and work from there consistently. So maybe you choose that during the course of your business day, the kitchen table is where you do your work. And then at the end of the day, have a way to pack up all of your work stuff into some container or some space so that you've got that visual cue that says work is over for the day and that you've reclaimed your home. And then you'd want to work from that space as regularly as possible. Keep it consistent because that will help build that work style, that streamlined work process physically into your space and also into your day. Once you've chosen where you're going to be working from and you've chosen the right desk, then it's time to stock your business with the supplies that you'll need during the course of a business day. And here are some basic supplies that you might need, all the standard usual suspects, paper supplies, pens, pencils, etc. Note at the end of this list that I included a label maker. I think that's a really helpful tool to keep you organized. Label the things which you think may be ambiguous to you or you're not sure what would be inside. And as an aside, you may also want to buy extra label cassettes when you buy your label maker because they tend to run out at the most inopportune times. For all of the other supplies that you're keeping in your business, each of us typically has some specific supplies that are just for our type of industry, or maybe you keep inventory for your work. You'll want to not only group all of those items, but you're going to want to make a list of all of the different things that you need to keep regularly stocked. Then keep this list in your supply storage area. That way, as you go to find a supply and you notice that something is running low, you can go down the list and notice if there's anything else that's also running low and check off those boxes. Then you can make one run to the supply store or make one order online for your office supplies rather than many little orders or run out of things when you really need something. This way, when you've got this checklist, you can keep all of those things in stock all of the time so that you're never running out when you need things the most. So you've got your office space, you've got your desk, and you've got your supplies. Now you need to put all that stuff someplace, right? So do this instead of what I usually see. What I usually see is clients have lots of stuff, and they say to themselves, I need to put this stuff somewhere. Right now it's on the floor, which is probably the number one most popular organizing spot. And you want to get your stuff up off the floor, so you go to the supply store. Maybe you go to a furniture store and you buy a bookcase or a cabinet. You bring it back to your space, you try to put the stuff away, and lo and behold, there's too much stuff to fit inside. So now you've got this big piece of furniture which doesn't quite fit your stuff, and you've got a bunch of stuff still on the floor. You're frustrated, the furniture's too big to return, and now you're stuck. You don't want that to happen. The way around that is to have an approach where you first determine what you have and then base your storage around what your needs are. So here's the process that I recommend. First, group everything that you need to store into their categories. So keep all of the supplies in one spot, all of the paper filing if you're keeping paper filing in one area, your books, your specialized inventory, whatever it is for your business, create groupings of the belongings that make sense for you. Then take a tape measure and measure exactly how much square footage each of these groupings needs. This is the step that most people miss. You want to determine just how much space you'll need before you go out and buy your storage. Then you can go, once you have that measurement, to the office supply store or the furniture store and purchase a bookcase, a cabinet, a drawer unit, whatever makes sense for the type of stored items that you want to put away. But here's a tip. Don't go and buy storage based exactly around the amount that you need to store. I recommend adding about 30 or 40% onto your estimate. Here's why. Most of us will end up getting more things, whether it's more supplies or extra inventory or our business just grows and we need more places to put things. If you buy exactly how much stuff or space you need to store for your stuff that you have right now, you'll be maxed out right away. And when you get those new things, there won't be any place for you to put them. So instead of having that happen, add a buffer of about 30 or 40% onto whatever your estimate is, and then purchase storage for that increased estimate. That way, when you get your new storage item, whether it's a cabinet, shelving unit, whatever it is, there'll be some room left over. And as you add more stuff, you'll already have places to put things. Don't max out your storage right away. So once you get your storage unit back, once you've gone and purchased it, then it's time to put your stuff away. But before you do, I recommend making a storage map or storage plan. And this is essentially just a diagram of what is going to live on each of the shelves or drawers in your storage unit. So you want to put things away in the unit in a way that makes sense for how you're going to use them. But rather than you having to shuffle things around physically, shuffle them around on paper first before you spend the effort and time of putting things away, and make sure that it makes sense for you before you actually physically put your stuff in the cabinets or on the shelves or in the drawers. One of the benefits of creating this storage map is not only does it just make it easier for you initially to put things away, but as your business grows, and I'm hoping that for all of you that your businesses will grow, you'll have a reference document for anyone new that joins your business of what lives where in your storage, so that as someone new comes on, you don't have to explain to every single person, here's where the supplies live and here's where we keep the inventory. All of that will be taken care of by a system. In this case, the system is your storage map, which is a reference document that you can add to your business process documents. And here's what a sample one looks like. Nothing fancy here, just a list that I created in Word of 3 different storage units, and then we see what's on the top, middle, or bottom shelf of each of the different units that's physically in the stored space. So this is a really helpful and easy way to plan out your storage without you having to do what I call the stuff shuffle, where you put stuff on a shelf, it doesn't quite fit, so you shuffle it around and you put some other stuff in the place where that was, and before you know it, you've got another mess on your hands. Use a tool like this one, plan your storage out in advance, and it can save you quite a bit of time, energy, and effort, both now and down the road as your business grows. So we've talked a little bit about maximizing your space and creating your storage so that you can be productive in your space. Now let's talk about one of my favorite topics, dealing with paper. And for many of you, I know this is a major bugaboo and probably your least favorite topic, but let's see if we can make it a little bit easier for you. Before we can talk about how to deal with paper, it's essential that we understand that there's an actual process that all documents go through when they enter our world. First, paper comes into our space, whether it's a meeting with a client and they give us some documents, we go to a networking event, we collect a bunch of business cards, the mail comes in and we need to deal with that. New paper comes into our space. Then at some point, we might sort the paper into groupings. Maybe we take the mail and we take out the bills and put those in one stack. And the things we need to read, we put them in another stack. Then we process the paper. We take that reading stack, and when we're on the bus or the train, we read through some of it. Or maybe if there's some bills we need to pay, we sit down, open the bills, write the checks, or go online and pay them. We take the actions that each piece of paper needs. And then we take the paper that is leaving our immediate workspace and get it out of there. We might archive documents that we need to hold on to. We might put things in the trash or recycling or shredding that we want to get rid of. If there's mail that we need to send out, we might put that in the mailbox. But things that we're done with leave our immediate workspace. They go out. And the key to managing paper is to have a dedicated space for each one of those specific steps. And we're going to go into this in a little bit of detail. You'll want an inbox for everything that's new, a specific area for managing the sorting and processing step of paper, and this is what most people are missing. Then we'll want an archival area for things that we're holding on to, and an outbox to collect everything that's on its way out of our space. Let's look at each of these in a bit more detail because they're all really important. First up is your inbox, and this is the first step for paper when it enters your world. This is a collection area, whether it's a basket, box, bin, or tray, for everything that's brand new that you haven't yet had time to process. So let's say you collected the mail. This is where you would drop it, along with those business cards that you collected at the networking event and the client documents that they gave you at that meeting. You'd put them in this box until you actually have time to sort and process them. Typically, the time that we collect everything is not when we're actually going to work on those documents. So what I see a lot is someone grabs their mail, they open up the mail, they unfold the letter, they read it, then they fold it back up, put it back in the envelope, and then put it back in the stack. Well, guess what? When it's time to actually work on that document, they have to do the exact same process again. So that's a major waste of time. And unless you are instantly processing your mail as soon as you receive it, there is no helpful point to you actually opening the mail, reading through it, and then closing it back up and putting it away just to do the same action again later. So this step is completely action-free. It's just about collecting all the things that are new so that they don't get mixed in with the things that you're already working on. Sometimes when I go see a new client, what I'll see is a mound of paper on their desk. And when I ask them about what's in the mound, they tell me, oh, on top is today's mail, and underneath is a project that I was working on yesterday, and As we flip through the mound, they find some mail that's unopened, and they find other things that were in process. It's a mishmash of everything. And we never want our things that we haven't yet processed mixed in with the things that are completely either in an already processed state or somewhat new. We want all of those things separate. So this is the spot for all of the things that are brand new. I promise we will deal with the paper, just not in this particular step. That happens next. And that happens in what I call the hot files. This is where all the action happens for your paper. This is where you actually deal with stuff. So the idea here is, instead of just having a bin or a tray that says to do on it, or a stack or mound of paper that are all the things that you're working on, instead, you've broken down the different actions that each piece of paper needs and grouped those actions together with other things that need the same action. So for instance, in a typical to-do stack or mound of paper, there's probably some things that need to be read. There's some other things that might need phone calls made. There might be some papers where you want to look up something online for further information. Maybe there's some bills that need to be paid. Each one of those is a really different, specific type of action. And so the idea here is you group each of those papers by their action type, and then you make a hanging file, and you label it with bills, or calls, or add to calendar, or read. Each one of those gets its own hanging file. And all of the papers where that's the next action for them goes into those specific hanging files. And you keep these hanging files in a small desktop file box, like the one I'm showing here. These are available at pretty much every office supply store in America. They come in different styles, colors, textures. Find one that you like, and then find some hanging files that you can label to keep inside. And then as you go through your inbox and you find papers that need different types of actions, you sort them into these action categories. Then it's much easier for you to take out the calls folder and make all of the calls at once, or take out the read folder and read through all of those items, or the bills folder and pay all of those at one time. So the idea here again is that paper comes in, you sort it into the actions, and then you process through many types of one action at one time, rather than a stack of mystery actions that you need to constantly shift gears on. This tool alone has saved my clients many, many hours of frustrating digging through stacks of paper, and it's made it much easier to process the things that they have, the things that they're currently working on. One thing to keep in mind here, however, is that this, again, is specifically for sorting and processing. It is not long-term or permanent storage. When your papers are done being worked on, they move on to the next step. And the next step is what I call the archive. And this is where you keep things, documents in particular, that you need to hold on to either long-term or indefinitely. This is your permanent storage. So these are things that you're accessing infrequently, not every single day in most cases. And again, organized by whatever categories make sense for you. And this can be a file cabinet, box, drawer. It can be online through a service like OfficeDrop, where you can send your documents in and then have them organized and searchable online. This is organized however it makes sense for you. So let me give you an example here. People tend to hem and haw over what to call the files that are in their storage. And the truth is, it doesn't matter all that much. What matters is that remembering that filing is about retrieval and not so much about storage, you want to think about what categories you'll think of when it's time to retrieve something. So for instance, let's say there's a stack of bank statements. One person might call those financials. Another might call them bank statements. A third might call them money. And a fourth might call them numbers. Whatever that category name is for you, whatever pops into your head first, is typically what you should call your files. The reason why is when you're going to retrieve those things later, that thing that popped into your head first is typically what you'll remember. And so make it easy on yourself, especially if you're the only person using your system. Don't worry about what someone else would call a file. It doesn't really matter. It's more so about what you need when you're going to retrieve something, and that typically is the first thing that pops into your head. Almost invariably, that's what you'll think of when it's time for you to look for something. So don't worry too much about what your categories are called. Just have them make sense for you. Now, in addition to paper or documents that you need to store and hold on to, there's going to be some, once you've processed them, that need to leave your space entirely. And for those, we want an outbox. It's like a companion to your inbox, except instead of being a collection area for the things that are brand new, it's a collection area for things that are on their way out of your space. So this could be outgoing mail. It could be documents that you're preparing to take with you to a meeting or to a client session. It could be things that you're going to give to a courier or send via FedEx or UPS. But the idea here is we don't want our things that are leaving mixed in with the things that are in process or that are brand new. So again, this is about creating dedicated spaces for each of those steps in the paper process. Having an outbox is really effective if you have a lot of things, or even just a few, that you typically need to take with you when you leave your space. That way you don't need to search your desk or your office trying to find that outgoing mail or trying to find that important client file. It's always in the same spot every single time. Now let's talk about one specific type of paper that you're likely to come in contact with: business cards. Many of us collect business cards, whether it's out in the world at networking events or just in the course of our daily lives. People give us business cards, or we give people our business cards. Business cards are everywhere. And one of the things I see very frequently with clients is that their business cards are in the bottom of their drawer, or they've got a rubber band around them, or they're at the bottom of their purse or in a fishbowl. Business cards are meant for you to create connections with people. When they're in what I call rubber band land, where they're just in a stack with a rubber band around them, there's no connections being made there. They're just being stored. And so instead, I think it's much more effective to take the information that's on the business cards, flesh out the information so that they become real people again, and add that information to your address book. So what I suggest is have an address book, whether it's a paper-based one or one on the computer, and then copy over not just the contact information like their email address, phone number, name, etc., but other information that helps turn this business card back into a real person. So you might want to write in the notes field where you met them. What event was it? What date was it? What were they wearing? What did they look like? Who was this person? And other memory triggers, like what did you talk about with them? What was the content of your conversation? What was interesting about them? And then, most importantly, under what circumstances might you want to contact them again? Do they offer something specific for you or the people in your world or network? Do you offer something that could be of benefit to them? When would you want to reconnect with them? So that this person is, again, a person, not just a name in your address book or a business card in the stack. What I see so frequently, even with clients that say they're pretty well organized, they've got all their stuff organized into a contact manager, but all they have really is a list of names. And when we go through the list of names, they don't really mean anything because they can't remember who these people are. So you want to add as much information as is necessary for you so that you make those contacts useful for you again. I know it can take a little bit of time to do this, but if you get in the habit of doing it after every time you collect a business card or at every networking event or even just once a week, this won't be such an onerous chore and you'll find that your contacts are much more useful for you. So we've talked about maximizing your storage and your space. I've given you some strategies for working with paper. Let's take a few minutes and look at some helpful tech tools that can help you manage some of the ongoing challenges that many of us have in our lives and in our businesses. First, I'd like to talk about OfficeDrop, and OfficeDrop is sponsoring today's seminar, but I personally use OfficeDrop and I think it's a great tool. OfficeDrop helps manage the paper challenge that many of us have, especially if we're dealing with storing lots of paper and having trouble retrieving it. OfficeDrop helps us by not only scanning our documents, but it stores them in a way that makes it very easy for us to organize, retrieve, and share them. And so this is a great tool if you're looking to reduce the amount of paper that you're storing, but you don't have the time or the desire to scan things yourself, especially if you're doing this in bulk. Or if you just want to be able to access your documents from anywhere, OfficeDrop creates a virtual file cabinet online where you can access your documents from any web browser, even on mobile devices. And this is a great tool if you are sharing documents with clients, because once they're scanned or in the OfficeDrop virtual file cabinet, they can easily be shared amongst team members or with clients. And it's a really handy way to process your mail. For instance, if you're on the go and you prefer dealing with electronic documents, you can send your mail to OfficeDrop, have it scanned, and then you can process it yourself via the electronic version. So there's many ways to use this tool. It starts at about $15 a month for 15 pages worth of scanned documents. And there's various service plans, including options where you can scan yourself and then store it online in the OfficeDrop virtual file cabinet. Let's look at how this works. First, you get your documents into OfficeDrop. You can send them in. They'll send you a prepaid mailer where you put your documents in and then send it to OfficeDrop and they scan it. You can scan yourself using the new ScanDrop application. So if you have a scanner, you install the ScanDrop application, and that lets you scan directly into your OfficeDrop virtual file cabinet and into other places as well. Or if you have electronic documents that you've created, you can upload those into OfficeDrop's virtual file cabinet, and then you can use that cabinet to manage and share your documents from there. So again, you can scan yourself if you want to. This is the ScanDrop application, which lets you scan documents directly into OfficeDrop, Evernote, Google Docs, and other places. So it plays nicely with all of our favorite cloud-based tools. And then once your documents are stored online, you can search, organize, share them however you best see fit. One of the things that I personally really like about OfficeDrop is that it mimics the way that we would work with our paper. If we were flipping through a bunch of documents in a stack, we typically would look at the first couple of inches at the top of the document to find the one or ones that we're looking for. If you'll notice here in the screenshot on the left, OfficeDrop mimics that function. It shows you a snapshot of the whole page of the document, and then it also shows you a snippet of the top couple of inches of the document as well, so that you can get that same sort of feeling of flipping through a stack electronically as you would with your paper, just without all of that paper clutter. So on the left, it's showing the OfficeDrop web application, where you can access your virtual file cabinet. And on the right, it's showing you the desktop application, where it's showing you the same documents, but in a different format locally on your computer, where it's accessing the file storage via the cloud, excuse me. So once you've found a document that you have, you can easily organize it. You can search for your documents. Since OfficeDrop, when it scans your documents, does what's called optical character recognition, where it actually recognizes the characters that's on the page, it makes all of your documents instantly searchable, so that when you need them, you can easily find what you're looking for just by entering a few key terms that might be somewhere in your document. Of course, you can browse documents, you can organize them and categorize them however makes sense for you. Remember, we talked about how important it is to be able to retrieve your documents, and it's really important that you're able to organize them and label them in the way that best suits how your own brain works. And OfficeDrop lets you do that because you can label things any way that you want to. You can also, if you'd like, download each document that's been scanned or stored as a PDF to your computer. You can also send it to Google Docs or share it with Evernote. And as I mentioned, OfficeDrop plays nicely with many of our favorite cloud-based tools. You can send things directly to many of the tools that you may already be using just with a couple of clicks. So you don't have to give up any other of your favorite tools. Rather, you can integrate them together with your new virtual file cabinet. One of the things I see frequently now with many of my clients is that we're all so busy, we're on the go, and we want to be able to access our stuff from anywhere. If you're out with a client, you want to be able to pull up their file if you have a question, or if they have a question on something that you may have been working on previously. If you've stored that important document in OfficeDrop, you can easily do that. because there's now clients for both Android and iOS. And if you have an iPad or a tablet or just a smartphone, you can easily get to the documents that you need right when you need them from anywhere where you have access with your smartphone. So you're in a meeting, you need to look up an important contract, store it in OfficeDrop, and you can find it easily on your phone. A lot of flexibility and freedom there that you simply don't have with paper-based documents. Another tool that I recommend to clients, especially if they are on the go or have multiple computers, maybe a laptop at home and a desktop at the office, or multiple laptops, one of the challenges that I see with them is that they're sending things back and forth to their different computers via email, or they're taking flash drives and transferring files back and forth. That can be okay if you've just got one or two things that you're transferring, but let's say you want to be able to work on the same set of documents wherever you happen to be, and you don't want to have to send them around to yourself. For that, you need a file synchronization tool. And the one that I recommend most of the time is called Dropbox. Dropbox is really simple to use. The way it works is on each of the computers that you want to have access to your documents on, you install Dropbox, you sign up for an account, which is free up to 2 gigabytes worth. And on each of those computers, a little folder gets created called Dropbox. Anything you want to appear on all of the computers that you have, you simply store inside of that Dropbox folder. And then automatically, they'll be copied to all of the different computers where you've installed Dropbox. And they'll show up in those Dropbox folders as if they were on the same computer. It works seamlessly, which is one of the things that I really like about it. You don't have to think about it. All you do is put the document that you want on your different computers in the Dropbox, and it automatically appears where you need it. And so this is really helpful if you're working on an important project and you want to be able to continue working on it once you leave the office. Store it in your Dropbox, and it'll automatically be on your home computer on your laptop as soon as you turn it on and it synchronizes. And then you can continue your work easily without you having to take the time to email it to yourself. Also, OfficeDrop lets you share folders if you're collaborating on a project and you want other people to be able to see them. You can share specific folders. And one of the benefits of Dropbox also is that since by definition copies are being created on your various computers, it adds an additional level of backup to all of the things that you're working on. And we'll talk a little bit more about backup in a moment, but this is like an additional layer, which I think the more ways you can back up, the better. You always want to make sure your data is safe and secure. So Dropbox, as I mentioned, is free up to 2 gigabytes worth of storage. Beyond that, if you need more, they're happy to take your money and give you more storage. It starts at $10 a month for 50 gigabytes worth of space. So Dropbox is ideal for people that have multiple computers and want to be able to access their documents on any of them. One of the things that's nice is that even if you don't have your own computer with you, let's say you're going to a friend's house or you're going to a meeting and your laptop dies, you can go, once you've signed up with Dropbox and you've synchronized your documents, you can go to the Dropbox website, log in, and then all of the documents that you've stored in your Dropbox are accessible also via the Dropbox web server, because a copy is stored there as well. So in a pinch, you can get those documents that you need on any computer that you happen to be on. Now, if you're primarily working on just one computer, you want to make sure that you're backing up that one computer. You may not necessarily need your documents synchronized amongst multiple computers, because if you've only got one, there's no point to synchronize them. But you definitely want to make sure that all of your important documents, files, whatever they may be, are backed up. And there's a couple of ways to back up. One is via external hard drive, or flash drive, or CD. The benefit of that is that it's usually fast, it's pretty cheap, and that if you need to restore your stuff, that process is also really fast because the drive is right there. The challenge, the con with this, is that let's say that hard drive crashes and your computer crashes, your backup is no longer useful for you. Or if you're backing your laptop up and you've got an external hard drive right next to it, and both get stolen, or there's a fire, or they both get damaged, your backup is useless to you. So there's limits to the usefulness of local hard drive-based backup or CD-based backup. Another option is online backup, that when your computer is idle and connected to the internet, it sends little bits or packets of data up over the internet to an offsite storage service, and your backup is stored on their servers someplace else. So the benefit to this is that you don't have to have an extra box sitting next to your computer, and if your computer and or that box are stolen, you still have a copy someplace else. The downside is that if you ever need to get your backup, if you ever need to restore your computer, it may take quite a while to download all of your stuff from that server, or you may have to pay a fee to have them send you disks or a hard drive with all of your data on it. I think having both options is ideal. And there's only one service I've found that lets you have what I think is the best of both worlds, and that's called CrashPlan. How it works is this. Once you sign up for CrashPlan, they send you a little piece of software where you install it on your computer, and you have the option of doing either type of backup, online, offline, or both. So let's say you choose to do both. You have an external hard drive, and the CrashPlan software backs up your documents and your data to that, and you can also elect to sign up for a subscription service with CrashPlan where your computer backs up to their offsite storage server as well. So you're backing up both ways, via hard drive and via online. And this is really what I think is the best, because no matter what happens, you've got a useful copy of your data somewhere where you can retrieve it. And what I think is also great about this is for personal use, for unlimited storage on the CrashPlan servers for their online service, $5 a month. Really great deal. And especially if you like the freedom and flexibility of having both backup methods, this is the only one I found all in one service where you can do both effectively and easily. If you ever needed to get your backup from the CrashPlan service, this is what you would see. This is the CrashPlan web interface, and you can select entire drives or just specific files that you need to restore. Ideally, you'd never see this screen. Hopefully your computer will never crash and you'll never need to restore your files, but if you did, this is what it would look like. So a couple of notes before we wrap up and we take some questions. How can you get started with boosting your productivity and getting more organized? As I mentioned in the beginning, you want to have a plan. You never want to start with the whole space or the whole thing. You never want to say, I'm going to organize my world or my office this weekend. That's way too big. Start small. Maybe you start with organizing the top of your desk or one drawer or just your papers. And then have a plan for how you're going to approach it. How are you going to go through those documents that are in your desk? What are you going to do with them once you've weeded through them? What's your strategy? Make sure you have one. And then, this is really important, let go of having things be perfect. There is no perfect to getting organized. There is no end point for boosting your productivity. Even for professional organizers like myself, we're never done getting organized. There's always more that can be done. There's always ways to tweak and adapt systems to make them easier or better, or just have them make more sense for us. So don't worry about it being perfect or it being exactly right or your things looking like the cover of a magazine. That is not reality. Instead, shoot for making things better. And you get to define what better means to you. When might it be time for you to consider working with a professional organizer or productivity specialist? If you want things done a lot more quickly than working on your own, if you want an expert to come in and give you their own consultative advice on it, or if you've got lots of stacks of organizing books or you've read lots of productivity blogs and you really like those ideas, but for whatever reason you're just not able to implement them, that's a really good sign. All of those are good signs. It means that you want the results, but you're just not clear on how to get from point A to point B, and you need some guidance to help get you there. That's exactly what professional organizers and productivity specialists do. We help figure out what the challenge areas are for you. We address them and then help you implement the strategies that will help keep you moving forward. So don't feel bad if you've tried to get organized on your own a lot or many times and it just hasn't worked. That's a good sign. It means you want the result. You may just want to consider getting outside help to make it happen. If you've tried and it hasn't worked, don't give up. Know that there's help available. To that end, I just want to offer everyone who is on the webinar today some opportunities to get more information about getting organized and more information specifically on those 7 key areas of productivity that I mentioned. I call this my profitable productivity system, and it's designed specifically for solo professionals, entrepreneurs, people in home offices that want to get more organized and boost their productivity. And this is based on my 8+ years of helping people do exactly that. And it's a set of downloadable audios and interactive workbooks where you can get them and then follow through step by step at your own pace strategies for getting organized and boosting productivity. And as a thank you for being on the webinar today, I just want to offer everyone a 65% off discount. This is one of the biggest discounts I've ever offered through 5/31, the end of the month. When you go to profitableproductivitysystem.com, and if you choose that it's the right thing for you, if you use the code OfficeDrop at checkout, you'll receive your 65% off discount. So I encourage you to check it out. And even if it's not the right fit for you, I want you to start thinking about those 7 key areas of productivity and make sure that you're addressing each one of those somehow. Without even one of those, it's hard to stay focused, productive, and on track. And with that, I'd like to open up the call for questions. I think we have a few minutes. Healy?
Great, Josh. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was really informative. I think I definitely learned something. I think I'm going to have to go get an inbox for all of my paper. So thank you.
Sure.
If anyone has any questions, we have our chat dialog box, which you should be able to see in your in the webinar panel on the right. Please ask away if anyone has any. Trying to see if anyone has any questions here.
Now's your chance.
Now is the chance. Yes, please.
One of the things I just want to mention while we're waiting for questions to come in is how awesome I think the Messiest Office contest is. I'm really impressed by what I've seen on there in terms of, people being brave and putting their photos forth. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, and this is a great opportunity to really get some great prizes and get some real help. As Healy mentioned, if you are the grand prize winner, you get consulting hours with me. Not to toot my own horn, but I've been doing this a long time, and I would be happy to help you get more organized. So if you haven't already, I really encourage you, just take a couple of quick pictures of your desk right at the conclusion of this webinar and submit them online. And within a couple of days, we'll be making a decision, I believe. Right, Healy?
So the way that the contest will be working is that we will be, the final day that we're accepting submissions, so photos of messy offices, is tomorrow, Saturday. And then over the weekend, Josh and I and one other OfficeDrop representative will be narrowing it down to the messiest finalists, and then we're going to let the Facebook community pick the final winners.
So the moral of the story is submit your pictures. There's nothing to
free.
be ashamed of.
It's
It's
free.
free.
There's a lot of great stuff you can win. Josh, so we're starting to get some great questions here. Christine asks if there's any file label systems that you would suggest or recommend.
File label systems. Christine, I'm not sure if you're mentioning ones that are prepackaged. There's a number of prepackaged file label systems where they come with a set of labels already made out with suggested file names. Personally, I'm not a fan. The reason why is because although they usually let you make a few labels on your own, most of them come with category names already set. And as I mentioned, I think it's really important that for every individual's file system that the labels and the categories are what they think and how they would label them. And so while I think those systems have a place. Like if you just don't want to put the time or thought into creating your own categories, certainly you can use one of those. I think it's way more effective to spend a little bit of time creating your category list yourself and then making the labels on your own, because it'll just make a lot more sense for you and it'll be easier for you when it's time for you to retrieve things. I have clients who have bought those systems and then they can't find the things that they need when they're looking for them because the categories aren't what they had initially thought of. So use those with caution. I'm not going to say they don't work, but make sure that you understand what those categories mean if you choose to use someone else's categories.
Um, Great. Saeed has a question. Actually, he would like to see the first slide about the planning and pruning that you had a while back.
Sure. The easiest place to see it is if you go to the website that's on the screen right now, profitableproductivitysystem.com. It's in the middle of the page, so you can go directly there and see it.
Great. Uh, Great. We answered Christine's question. Perfect. We have a question from Rosie. It sounds like she works with a dentist who has X-rays that he needs to back up, and he's been doing it by backing up every night on a removable hard drive, then taking it home and saving it on his computer at home every single day. And Rosie wants to know if you have a way that he might be able to do this better. I think this is a pretty interesting question because obviously there's a lot of laws around medical records and things like that. So, Josh, have you ever worked with any medical providers or anything, or do you have any tips here
I,
for Rosie and her dentist?
I have, Rosie. That's a good question. HIPAA laws, which are the laws that protect our medical data, are complex. And in truth, I would think that your dentist may actually be violating them by taking the data that's for his business and storing it on his home computer. So he may already want to check the HIPAA laws and make sure that what he's doing is okay. Um, in terms of whether it's legal or okay, probably what he's doing, if it is legal, is fine. I mean, he has a backup strategy. He's doing it regularly. Seems a bit labor intensive to me. He may want to look at using one of the online backup services and just checking what their security and privacy policies are stringently before he decides whether to store client data with them. Um, but this is where the laws get tricky because HIPAA is tricky. And HIPAA typically has not caught up with technology. So I'm not sure that I have a better answer or solution than what he's doing currently, although just from a productivity standpoint, it sounds like what he's doing right now is pretty labor intensive. And one thing that he may want to keep in mind is that external hard drive backup, while it works and is fast, hard drives fail. And typically, the average lifespan of a hard drive is around 3 years. So I would just make a note to him that he can expect to have to replace those drives once every 2 years or so just for safety. Hard drives have a lot of moving parts, and they just aren't meant to last forever. So just have them build that into his budget or his tech plan that he's going to need to replace those periodically.
Great, Josh. Thank you. Actually, Raquel has a question that I think is pretty pertinent. Josh, this is something we were talking about earlier. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to join until a few minutes ago and wants to know if Josh has another webinar scheduled. And first of all, I want to let you know that we have recorded this webinar and as a video, and we'll be posting it on the OfficeDrop blog sometime in the middle of next week. But Josh, you actually have another webinar coming up next week. Maybe you want to mention what that is for people.
I do, thank you. I'm always doing webinars, and I'm really excited about the one, not only ones that I'm doing with OfficeDrop, but I actually have one that I'm doing completely on my own next Friday. It's about time management, and it's specifically time management techniques that are easy and implementable, and that's next Friday. And if you want to learn more about it, just visit my Custom Living Solutions Facebook page, which is at facebook.com/Custom Living Solutions. And from there, if you click on the Events tab, you can see all of the webinars and events that I have coming up, which I would love it if all of you would attend. I really enjoy having people on there, and I love hearing questions. And again, that address is facebook.com/Custom Living Solutions. And join me next week for the time management webinar. I think it's going to be a really good one.
Yep, I'm lucky enough to have been involved with a number of webinars Josh has given, and they are extremely helpful.
Thanks, Ely.
Actually, Christine has another question here about OfficeDrop that I think I can answer here. She asks, when using OfficeDrop, are you able to make changes to the documents you can see? Are they saved as PDFs? So the documents are saved as text searchable PDFs, either the scans that OfficeDrop does, or if you are scanning on your own or emailing a document into OfficeDrop, they become what we refer to as text searchable PDFs. They are not editable unless you have a special PDF editing software. So the OfficeDrop system doesn't actually allow you to edit them, but you can download them and edit them with a different program. But the thing that we think is really powerful is because we are using high-end optical character recognition, we make it so that all of the letters, numbers, words, phrases, etc. in the documents become recognizable as text. So we have a search engine which makes it very easy to find specific words or phrases or numbers in your documents. And also, if you download the PDF, you can select the text and then copy paste it into Word documents and things like that. So that can be very helpful if you are trying to take forms or brochures or other things that are on paper and actually be able to get text off of them and put them into some other document that you're working with. So at the moment, I don't see any other questions. We'll wait just another second and see. Christine asks if the slides will be available. We'll be making this available as a video on the OfficeDrop blog. So that's probably the easiest way to see it. And you can also go to Josh's productivitysystems.com and see some of the stuff broken out there as well. And Avi says, thank you for giving this webinar. Thank you, Avi. We appreciate having everyone here. Josh, any last words?
No, I just want to stress to everyone how important I think getting organized and boosting your productivity is. And as I mentioned, don't feel like it has to be perfect. Just take it small steps, take it slow, and you will get there. And if I can be of assistance, just let me know. I'm happy to help. My website is on the screen right now. And I look forward to hearing from you and hopefully seeing all of you at another upcoming webinar. And I want to thank you, Healy, and OfficeDrop for hosting.
This was a lot of fun. We think this was really useful. So thank you, everyone, for attending. And Josh, thank you very much. And I've got to go to Staples now and get myself an inbox here for my paper. All right, thank you, everyone. We'll be ending now. And again, thanks to Josh Zerkel. Take care. Bye now.